Hello and welcome. My name is Jonathan Stav, and here at Sectors Made Simple, we've created over 200 hours of educational content and investment resources to give you the knowledge and tools you need to invest simpler. Today, I want to show you why point and figure is probably the easiest type of stock chart to use if you're interested in getting into technical analysis. To do this, we're going to cover support and resistance barriers and talk about how these support and resistance barriers help us define buy and sell signals in point and figure. Now, we're not going to cover the basics of point and figure today, but that is something we've covered in a past video, which you can find the link to up in the top right. But for today, let's take a look at what we'll learn about. In today's video, we'll cover what support and resistance barriers are, how we can use support and resistance barriers to find buy and sell signals, what some of the most common types of technical patterns we might find in point and figure are, and lastly, where we can find point and figure charts to be able to do technical analysis. Let's start off by talking about what support and resistance barriers are. In simple terms, support and resistance barriers are points where a price trend has previously stopped and changed directions. If we have a price that is going up, or in an upward trend, we would say that we have a resistance barrier where the price got up to and then turned around into a downward direction. On the other side, we would have a support barrier if we had a downward trend that went down to a certain price, stopped before starting to go back up. It's worth noting that support and resistance barriers are not unique to point and figure and apply to all different types of charts. However, these support and resistance barriers are extremely easy to see and find in point and figure, which is why we feel they are so valuable when we're trying to look at technical analysis. Also, point and figure resistance barriers and support barriers will often show that a price reaches but does not pass a support or resistance barrier multiple times before it finally breaks out above or below that barrier. Let's now talk about how we can use these support and resistance barriers to find buy and sell signals in point and figure. Before we do, I do want to mention that when we talk about point and figure buy and sell signals, these are not a recommendation or a suggestion to go buy or sell those securities. Instead, these are just common industry terms that are used to describe breakouts for buy signals and breakdowns for sell signals. Speaking of, let's clarify what I just said, because we can have one of two different things. First, a buy signal, where a buy signal most commonly is where we have a price go above a previous resistance barrier. On the other side, a sell signal or a breakdown is where we have the price go below a previous support barrier. But let's get a little bit more specific than that and really get into how we find these different buy and sell signals so that you would be able to look at a point and figure chart and figure out for yourself what the current signal for that security is. But how do we know where these different resistance and support barriers actually are? Well, whenever we're looking at a point and figure chart, there are many different support and resistance barriers, but we'll just cover the most simple one, which is the most recent one. To find that, there is always going to be one support barrier and one resistance barrier. The resistance barrier will be above the most recent column of X's, whereas the support barrier will be right below the most recent column of O's. This gives us two different levels so that our current trend, whether it's a trend positive with a column of X's or a negative trend with a column of O's, has some idea of where it would need to get to in order for us to have a buy or sell signal. Now, there is one weird thing when it comes to point and figure buy and sell signals, and it's that these charts are binary. They will either be in a buy signal or a sell signal, whichever was the most recent one. While this might seem a little weird, and in fact defends why before I mentioned that we should not be treating these point and figure buy and sell signals like recommendations to buy or sell that security, it actually does work in our favor. There are many different types of technical analysis that we will get into in future videos, such as relative strength and BPI, that really rely on the fact that these charts are always identifying as buy signal or sell signal charts. Before we get into point and figure buy and sell signals, I really quickly want to remind you that we would greatly appreciate a like on this video or a subscription to our channel. These little actions by you really do go a long way for us to understand what kind of content you're interested in, as well as try and get these videos in front of more people to help everyone invest simpler. With that said, let's go take a look at those buy and sell signals. Let's now cover some of the most common types of point and figure chart patterns. While these are not all of the different patterns that exist, this will be a good enough list to get you started if you're interested in point and figure and using point and figure for technical analysis. The most simple type of point and figure buy signal that we might find is a double top breakout. This is where we have a resistance barrier that was set by a single column of X's, with the current column of X's breaking out above that previous resistance barrier, thus entering a buy signal. The next step up from that would be a triple top breakout, where we had the price reach but not pass that resistance barrier twice before finally breaking out above it on that third column of X's. On the other side of things, we have the exact same events, but with support barriers and sell signals. First, we have the double bottom breakdown. This is where we have a support barrier that was formed by a column of O's, with the next column of O's going below that previous support barrier. A little bit on top of that, we have our triple bottom breakdown, which, just like the triple top breakout, is two columns of O's that reached but did not go below a certain point, which creates a support barrier there, with the newer column of O's breaking down below those two previous columns of O's and that support barrier. While again, this is not an exhaustive list of all of the different types of chart patterns that you might find in point and figure, a general rule of thumb is this. The more times a price reaches but does not break past a support and resistance barrier, and the longer the time has passed since that support and resistance barrier has been broken, the more valuable the signal is once that breakout or breakdown event actually happens. Now, I know what you might be thinking. If we're not supposed to use these buy and sell signals for buying and selling, what's the good in keeping track of them? Well, we have to remember that support and resistance barriers are levels of change, where we had a previous trend reach but not go past. When a trend is broken and a new trend begins, as investors, that is something that we're interested in. If what we want is to identify different securities that have chances of improving or are on trends that we are interested in, being able to identify when these trends have value is extremely valuable to us. And point and figure buy and sell signals are a very easy way to get started in identifying when these trends become significant. Finally, point and figure buy and sell signals are great, but finding point and figure charts can be a little bit tricky. There are not as many sites that offer point and figure charts, and even fewer that offer that information for free. One of the sites that we often use for our point and figure charts is Stock Charts. They offer a wide range of customization options for point and figure so that you can really drill down and find the information using P&F that matters the most to you. Finally, if you'd like to see some examples of different types of point and figure buy and sell signals and real stocks that are in these signals, you can find a full list of all of the different stocks that are on different patterns under the Charts and Tools section in Stock Charts within the Predefined Scans section. Let's now summarize everything that we've covered in today's video. We talked about what support and resistance barriers are, and that these are levels where a trend previously stopped and reversed directions. We can understand these support and resistance barriers and use them to identify when a new trend becomes significant, when it breaks out above a previous resistance barrier in a positive trend, or falls below a previous support barrier in a negative trend. Point and figure charts are always in a buy or a sell signal, and the value or significance of those different signals depends on what type of breakout or breakdown we had. The more times a resistance or support barrier is hit but is not passed, the more value and interest there is when a breakout event actually occurs. If you found this information useful, we want to quickly remind you that over on our website, sectorsmadesimple.com, you can create a free account and get access to over 100 hours of free webinar content covering all different types of investment information from different types of securities, world events that have shaped the market, as well as other general market and financial education information. Much of this content is organized into different playlists to help you really focus on one specific topic that interests you. Again, you can create a free account on our website, sectorsmadesimple.com, to continue learning how the world of investing can be made simpler. But for today, thank you all so much for joining us here, and we hope to see you all back very soon.